Zoroastrianism, the faith of kings. Long before the rise of Darius or Xerxes, before Persepolis shimmered under the desert sun, a prophet walked among the ancient tribes of Iran, Zarathustra, known to the Greeks as Zoroaster. He spoke of light and darkness, truth and lies, good and evil, not as myths, but as forces that shaped every human soul. His words became the foundation of Zoroastrianism, the first great monotheistic faith to ignite the ancient world. At its heart was a simple but profound belief. The universe was a battlefield between Ahura Mazda, the wise lord of light and truth, and Angram Mainyu, the spirit of chaos, deceit, and destruction. Every man and woman, Zarathustra taught, must choose their side, not through sacrifices or rituals, but through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. This moral compass didn't just guide individual lives, it became the spiritual backbone of an empire. When Darius the Great rose to power, he declared in the monumental Behistun inscription that Ahura Mazda had granted him kingship because he walked in truth and was no friend to the lie. To Darius, being king was not merely to rule men, it was to uphold Asha, the divine order, against Druj, the lie and chaos that threatened harmony. Yet the Persian faith was not one of intolerance. Though the kings revered Ahura Mazda, they did not demand others do the same. In Egypt, the temples of Amun and Isis continued to flourish. In Babylon, priests still offered incense to Marduk. In Lydia and Ionia, shrines to Greek gods stood untouched. The Achaemenid kings understood a truth rare among conquerors, that faith, like empire, thrives best in peace. This policy of religious tolerance wasn't just magnanimity, it was strategy. By allowing each people to honor their own gods, the great king secured loyalty without bloodshed. The empire became not a graveyard of cultures, but a living mosaic of them. The great king, Shahanshah. At the heart of this vast, intricate world stood one man, the Shahanshah, the king of kings. To his subjects, he was more than a ruler. He was the chosen agent of Ahura Mazda, the earthly embodiment of divine order. When the king spoke, it was as if the voice of heaven echoed through marble halls. The royal court was the physical manifestation of that divinity. Imagine the great audience hall at Persepolis, sunlight streaming through tall columns carved with bulls and lions, the air heavy with incense and gold dust. Courtiers and nobles from every corner of the empire, from the Indus to the Nile, stood in silent reverence. Before the throne, ambassadors from distant lands approached, bearing gifts: Babylonian embroidered robes, Indian ivory, Egyptian gold, Greek silver vessels. Each delegate bowed low, performing proskynesis, the ritual act of prostration before the King of Kings. The king himself was a figure of measured majesty, never seen eating or laughing in public, always surrounded by guards and ceremony. His garments shimmered with purple and gold, his beard meticulously curled, his crown gleaming with gems. It wasn't vanity, it was symbolism. Every act, every garment, every silence reminded the empire that their ruler was not merely a man, but the earthly guardian of cosmic balance. Behind this grandeur lay a vast machinery of governance: scribes, treasurers, generals, satraps, provincial governors, and the legendary the king's eyes and ears, inspectors who reported directly to the throne. Even from thousands of miles away, Darius or Xerxes could know what happened in Egypt, Sardis, or Bactria within weeks, a miracle of communication for the ancient world. Law, justice, and language. Justice in the Persian Empire was as sacred as prayer. The king, guided by Ahura Mazda, was the ultimate source of law, but he did not rule as a despot. Local customs, traditions, and legal systems were preserved. A Babylonian could still appeal to Babylonian law. An Egyptian could still be judged according to Egyptian principles. But above all stood the king's law, a universal order that bound the empire together. Royal inspectors traveled endlessly, observing courts, reviewing trials, and reporting corruption directly to the throne. A dishonest satrap could lose his fortune or his head if found guilty of injustice. And then there was the matter of language, the lifeblood of administration. To rule an empire that spanned continents, Darius needed words that could travel as swiftly as his couriers. The answer was Imperial Aramaic, a simple, flexible language that could be written quickly on papyrus or parchment. From Sardis to Susa, from Persepolis to Babylon, scribes penned the king's decrees in Aramaic, the world's first true bureaucratic lingua franca. But when the words were carved into stone, when the king wanted eternity to listen, he turned to Old Persian, a script invented for royal use, chiseled alongside Elamite and Babylonian translations so that every subject might read the truth. Those inscriptions still speak today, the voice of an empire carved in cuneiform, whispering through time. Art and architecture, the language of empire. If law and language bound the empire, art gave it a soul. Walk through the terraces of Persepolis or the palaces of Susa, and you see not one culture, but many, woven into one. Egyptian lotus designs crown Persian columns, Greek-style fluting runs along the shafts, winged bulls and lions borrowed from Assyrian and Babylonian motifs guard the stairways. Everywhere, the same message unfolds in stone reliefs, delegation after delegation of men from every nation, bringing tribute to the King of Kings. Ethiopians, Medes, Armenians, Indians, Egyptians, all rendered with astonishing detail, each face distinct, each culture respected. This was not just art, it was ideology. The reliefs of Persepolis were sermons in stone, proclaiming a vision of unity, not through conquest, but through cooperation. In this empire, order reigned. The lion fought the bull, day conquered night, truth defeated the lie, and Ahura Mazda watched over all. The soul of the empire. The Achaemenid Empire was more than roads and palaces, soldiers and gold. It was a civilization built on faith, justice, and respect. In a world where empires rose and fell by the sword, the Persians offered something revolutionary, a vision of power guided by morality, of diversity embraced rather than erased. From the blazing altars of Zoroastrian fire temples to the shadowed corridors of Persepolis, from the scrolls of Aramaic scribes to the murmured prayers of Egyptian priests, one idea bound it all together. That beneath all differences, all languages, all gods, all lands, there was an order, a truth, a light. And as long as that light burned, the Persian Empire stood, a kingdom not just of men, but of the spirit.